I'm Dr. Lorien Murfield, and you are listening to the Shepherd Revolution podcast.
Shepherd Revolution.
Hey, it's David, and welcome to the Shepherd Revolution podcast. I'm so excited. We are continuing our series, Teaching to Change Lives. My guest, a special passion and mission to help us transform our thinking to do what we never thought was possible. As a middle child of 8, he was overlooked. No one expected him to go to college. No one expected him to earn his master's and Ph.D. No one expected him to teach in college. If that isn't enough, no one expected him to write 23 books and counting, 12 online courses, 4 plays, and a short movie. They definitely didn't think he would run his first marathon at 62, become a podcaster and an international speaker. But he did. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome my guest, Dr. Lorien Murfield. Welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Awesome.
Just glad to be here. It is just so much fun.
Yes. So tell me, this book that you just recently wrote, this autobiography, let's see a picture of it.
Not even out yet.
This is not
It's
the
a sneak peek.
exclusive.
It's not. It'll be out in a couple of months. I got to launch it. Got to do it the right way. But it's all about pitchfork to Ph.D.
Pitchfork.
How I went from I am a chore boy follower, shoveling cow manure, to becoming a Ph.D. and a disruptive leader.
So now let's unpack that a little bit more. Like a disruptive leader, right? Oftentimes in schools, in education, and in the workplace, compliance is praised. And now what you're saying is becoming a disruptive leader. So what does a disruptive leader look like, sound like, feel like?
Well, I'll use another word that'll give it to you clearer. It's pivotal. We're all told that we have to change.
Yeah.
But what happens when we strategically look to say, how can I change to seize the best opportunities? Not just a little bit, not just settling for shoveling the crap of others, but instead, how about if we unleash the ultimate inside ourselves, and then we look and say, how can I go think bigger, reach higher, and do what no one thought I could do? And how about if we do what other people never thought they could do? I love following people like Elon Musk.
Yes.
Wow. Reusable rockets. Wow. Just reading a quote of his, and he says, I want to die on Mars, just not from impact.
Wow.
It's like, I don't want to crash land on Mars. I want to go there and live. It's like, that's what I had to do. When I was a chore boy, I spent my time thinking about what could I do. And it took me a while to work through all the garbage in my thinking. I had to think bigger. Instead, I wasn't thinking bigger until after I went through 10 years of marriage and a divorce and a lot of ugly things before I could think and say, I had a prize inside. I had a unique value that nobody else does. And once you tap that, it's a geyser. It's not just pumping a little oil. It's unbridled. It just flows from the pressure deep within.
That's powerful. You mentioned like going through these experiences in the divorce and 10 years of marriage, and then like getting through the clutter of garbage between your ears, which is the mind. Like, how did you overcome? Like, because you face like both. I would assume going through a divorce, you face some emotional pain, some spiritual pain, even some physical pain as the heart hurts. Like,
and don't forget the financial.
And the financial, yeah. So financial, right? So what was the pivotal, you mentioned pivot, like what was the pivotal moment that allowed you to move from one place to a place now where you seem to be thriving, and more importantly, you're imparting wisdom in so many lives? What was that pivotal moment?
When people told me you'll never amount to anything.
So you
And
took
quite
that challenge.
frankly, that's when you have to get mad. That's when you have to get angry and say, you're wrong, and maybe some other words as well. But it's when you say, enough. I've had enough.
Yes.
And if you won't believe in me, somebody will. And if somebody else doesn't believe me, I will. And that's when I had to say, you know what? If you're going to do it, I'm going to do it. And it's like saying, I'm not going to play by your rules anymore. And that's where the disruptive comes in and says, you know, I'm going to change the rules. And, you know, Einstein had to break, I think it was Sir Isaac Newton's rules. Pretty good guy to follow, but if you're going to do what no one's done before, you've got to create different rules for yourself. And it's like, I chose to go back to school and get my bachelor's, master's, Ph.D., and I went into college teaching. I wanted to retire a college professor. But when my second professorship, I started to feel like, wait a minute, this isn't a good fit. I don't like who I'm working with. I don't like their values. I don't feel like a good fit. I don't think I can do what I need to do. And they say, we feel the same way. Okay, am I going to feel like a lousy person? Am I going to commit suicide in the sense that give up my life? And I said, no. And then when my youngest son at 22 took his own life, it just really reinforced it. And saying, I became impatient and intolerant for the good things. And I said, I know what I want to do. I know I can be far more than anyone has told me I could be. I claimed it for myself. And then I went to developing it. By the way, I published my first book, because it was already in the works, a month after I buried my son. Just 2 years within that time, and that's be 15 years. And now I am producing my 23rd or 24th book. Several online courses. I'm finishing my 4th play, ready to stage it. I did a movie short last summer. Life knows no bounds. When you know and you say, I don't know for sure what it is, but I'm willing to find it, and I'm not going to let anyone stand in my way. I'm sure not going to be, as a brother told me, it was meant as a compliment, but he looked at my 4 diplomas hanging on the wall, and he says, out of all 8 of us kids, you're the last one that any of us thought would do anything significant.
Wow.
They didn't see it. I didn't see it. But if we're willing to believe and willing to work, we can do far more than anybody around us and even ourselves thought possible.
Wow. That is incredible. To hear the level of passion in your voice, this is inspiring and both motivating. When you think of the teaching to change lives, what you echoed was essentially life has no bounds, seeing past the limits and believing in oneself, even if people don't believe in us in the moment or see our potential. When you think of teaching to change lives, like, what does that mean to you?
Oh, it means helping them to find their unique value. It helps them to, I've got a book on that called The Prize Inside. And I've got 2 other books, Conversations with My Future Self, where imagine if we could look at ourselves 5, 10, 20 years in the future and see what we have become Imagine the doubts that we could overcome. And I think our teachers need to teach that way. Teach when they see the value of that child or that individual, and teach to that point where we say, you are capable of that. I remember my first professorship. I was doing that with one guy. He had more potential, and when I told him that, he says, don't tell me that. He was looking for a reason to underperform, to goof off. And he didn't like it when we told him, you have more talent than you're showing. Now, I don't know what happened to him in life. I want to believe that he came to a point where he says, maybe they're right. And imagine, to me, that confidence, and I've even created a course called Foundations for Success that talk about developing your character, your reputation, your confidence, your skills, and your leadership. And teaching to that point where people see their unique value. They see how they can use that unique value to better the world. And when they do that, they own it. They sell everything else. They quit trying to rent being somebody else, and they own it. That's when we can figure out, okay, where can I share it? And then how can we celebrate it? That I think is the key, is helping people to celebrate that prize inside. And when we do, is there any wonder why they change the world around them? They're not disengaged, they're engaged. They want more because they understand who they are and how they can make a difference. The worst thing we can have in the world is to feel worthless. No one should feel worthless. I shoveled so much manure, I felt like a piece of it. And the day I stood up and said, no more. No more. I'm not going to believe that way. I'm not going to feel that way. I'm going to find something within myself. Oddly enough, one of the ways I found that is through writing, putting my thoughts into words and be able to share those. That's critical. Whatever we find that we do well, and it might just be, maybe I just staple papers. You find some little thing and you say, organize. Oh, okay, I organize things. Okay, where can that go? Where can that be? Who can benefit from that? That's transformational.
You said so many powerful points that I just want to highlight. You talked about celebrating with others. You talked about sharing. You talked about embodying the mentality of ownership. So owning what is, because blaming, throwing this out there, blaming is the worst strategy. And then you talked about just serving others, like finding whether you're, stapling papers, but how can this activity serve others in it? And teachers should be teaching in a way that it talks about, or it understands the gifting of how the students are wired. And then you made this powerful point of you were shoveling so much manure that you believe that you were part of it. And the day that you stood up and said, hey, no more, is the day that your life has changed. And I think it summarizes teaching to change lives in a nutshell. And it's so powerful. Dr. Lorien, when people want to get connected with you, how could they get connected with you?
Well, they can go to one or two places. I've got two websites. One is murfieldcoaching.com, Murfield. Don't make any other letters in there that people want to do. Murfieldcoaching.com, or they can go to Total Career Growth. I've partnered up with a real estate professional, and we do a podcast, and we have all kinds of things on Total Career Growth. but they can go to